Hi, thank you for clicking on this video. In today's video, I'm going to talk about distributive law, right? So, what is a distributive law? It simply means that, see, I've got A here in yellow. So, I'm going to distribute A to multiply each and every term or variable inside of these two brackets, right? So A will multiply B. So this is the answer. A multiplied by B, right? And you take A again. Remember, A needs to multiply each and every term. A will now multiply C. So this is where A multiplies C, right? Therefore, for the last time, A will multiply D, right? So this is the end product. A multiplied by D, right? So A is common. Okay, so that means A multiplied each and every term or variable inside of the brackets. Okay, so on the slide, before we continue, I just want to explain multiplication of operation signs. Okay, so the first one would be if you have a positive multiply by a positive, the answer will be a positive. Okay, now second part, positive multiply by a negative, the answer will be a negative. Okay, now the third part would be negative multiply by a negative. What do you have? You have a positive. Okay, now the last one would be negative multiplied by a positive. What is the answer? The answer will be a negative. Okay, so you just need to make sure that you memorize this. Example number 1. Okay, simplify 2 into x cubed plus 3x squared plus 8x plus 7, close bracket. Right, now I put this here so that it can be a reference on how to go about simplifying the expression that we have here. All right, now when you are given an expression like this, the expectation is to multiply whatever that is inside of these two brackets by the number that is outside the bracket, right? Now 2 will multiply x cubed. 2 will therefore multiply 3x squared, so on and so forth. All right, now this is what this means. Right, now let's get into it. So the first part will be 2 multiplied by 1. There is 1 here, so you just multiply the coefficients of whatever variable you have. Okay, so 2 will multiply the coefficient that is here, which is 1, and then the answer that you get will be 2. Okay, the answer will be 2. And then what else do? You just carry whatever variable you have there as it is. Okay, now the second part, 2 will therefore multiply positive 3. Remember, we are only multiplying the coefficients by that number that is outside the brackets. Okay, 2 multiplied by coefficient positive 3, which is positive 6. Okay, I go ahead and write positive 6. Okay, and what else do? I keep the variable as is, right? Which will therefore mean I have 6x squared. Okay, now 2 will therefore multiply positive 8, right? So that will give me positive 16. Okay, And what else do? I just carry the coefficient as is, right? The last part will be 2 multiplied by 7, which will give me positive 14. Positive 14. Okay, this is now my answer. Now, if I want to simplify further, I have to look for like terms. I don't have like terms here, right? So that means this is my final answer. Okay, and the reason why I don't have like terms is because I have x cubed here, but I don't see any other x cubed somewhere here. I have x squared, but I don't see any other x squared anywhere else, right? So I have x, but I don't see any other x raised to exponent 1 anywhere else here, right? Let's move to the next example. All right, example number 2. Simplify this expression, right? The first thing that you need to know is what we know as bod mass, right? So it's bod mass, right? So what does it mean? The first letter means brackets, second one of, the next one division, the next one M for multiplication, and then the next one for addition, and then the last one is subtraction. Okay, now what does it mean? It means that when you are given an expression and you are expected to simplify that expression, right? The first thing on that expression that you need to simplify is the part that contains brackets, right? For an example, on our expression, we do have the part that has brackets. So we first need to simplify that part, right? And move to the next condition, or a part where it contains of. If it's not there, we check the next one that is there in this order. Okay, very important. Now, let's try to simplify our expression. We do have 3 minus 3 into 3x squared minus 2x plus 5, close bracket. This part has brackets, meaning I'm going to write everything else as it is, and I'll focus on simplifying the brackets, right? The first thing that I do. Okay, let's do that. Going to write this as it is, right? And what do I do next? I simplify that part. So I have negative multiplied by positive. Remember, there's a positive here. What do you get when you multiply a negative and a positive? You get a negative. Okay, now 3 minus multiply by 3, right? That coefficient, that will give you a 9. Okay, so you'll get a 9. Now, what is the next thing that you need to do? You take the variable, that variable as it is. You just drop it, put it here. Okay, because we multiplied 3 by that, the whole thing, the whole term. Okay, so I'm just going to put it here as x squared. Okay, now the next part, minus multiply by minus, right? So negative multiplied by negative, that will give you a positive. Okay, so I have a positive there, right? Now 3 multiplied by 2, that will give me 6. Okay, so I'm going to have positive 6. What else do I know? I know that the next thing is to just drop that variable as it is, because I multiplied 3 by the whole thing here. Okay, so that will give me x. Okay, now move on to the last part. Negative multiply. So this is multiply. Negative multiply by positive. Okay, so what is negative multiplied by positive? That is negative. Okay, now the next part will be to multiply 3 multiplied by 5, which will give you 15. Okay, right. Now, the next part or the next step is to check if you do have like terms. All right. So when we group and simplify like terms, that helps us to further simplify our expression, right? So we did get an answer by distributing that 3 into the whole thing that was inside the brackets, and we did get the answer here, right? Now we need to check if we can simplify further. Okay, now do we have like terms? Yes, we do have like terms here. Why? Because we have a number that is a standalone number, and the other one is just right here, right? So there is no variable attached to that number. This qualifies these two numbers as like terms. All right, now the next thing is to simplify these two, so which means it's going to be 3 minus 15, right? What is the answer? The answer will be minus 1, 2, okay? Minus 12. Now, the next part will be to further look for like terms. Do we have any other term that contains x squared except for this one? No, we don't, right? Therefore, I'm going to write it as it is. Okay, minus 9x squared. Okay, then you go back again. Do you have a term that contains x raised to exponent 1 except for this one? No, we don't. Therefore, you go ahead and write it here. Okay, so I'm going to write 6x. Okay, now this is not complete, right? Because okay, so the last question is to ask ourselves, do we have any other like terms to simplify further? No, we don't, right? So the next part will be to write that your answer, right, in descending order, meaning you look at the highest exponent number and you write it in descending order, meaning you start with the highest, the next highest, and a number will be the last one, right? So the one with the highest exponent is minus 9x squared. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and write that minus 9x squared. Which one? It has the next highest exponent, so it's 6x, so it's positive 6x. So I'm going to go ahead and write that positive 6x. Okay, now the last one will be minus 12. Okay, so I'm just gonna go ahead and write minus 12. This is my answer. Okay, let's move to the next example. Example number 3, right? So we are going to do more or less like how we approached example number 2. Okay, So we do have brackets and we do have brackets. So we're going to use the distributive law to simplify this part that has brackets. Okay? Let's go ahead. Now, what do we have? We know that positive multiplied by positive, that will give us a positive. Okay? I'm going to go ahead and write positive there. So I'm not going to write it. So 3 multiplied by 2. Okay, that will give me 6. Okay, so that will give me a 6. All right. What is the next thing that I need to do? I just drop that variable as it is and put it here. All right. So I'm going to put x squared right there. All right. Now, the second part will be to move on to the next part. Okay. Positive in front of 3, positive multiplied by that negative. Right. Positive multiplied by negative is negative. Okay. So I will have a negative, and then 3 multiplied by 2. That will give you a 6. Okay. Now you have negative 6. Okay. What else do you know? You know that since when we are multiplying this part, we just drop the variable that we have here. So we'll have x somewhere there. All right. So I'm going to put x here. All right. Now move on to the next part. Positive multiplied by positive, that is positive. Okay. So I'm going to put a positive there, and therefore 3 multiplied by 1. All right. So that will be equals to 3. Great. So I have completed this part. Now I move to the next part. Positive multiply by positive. That will give me a positive. Okay. Now, what else do you know? 2 multiplied by 3. That will give you a 6. All right. So that will give me number 6. So what else do I know? I'm going to drop that x squared and put it here. Right. So take that x squared and drop it and put it somewhere there. All right. Now, the next part will be to say positive multiplied by negative. What do you get as your answer? You get a negative. Positive multiplied by negative is negative, right? Now, the next step will be to multiply 2 times 2, okay, which will give you a 4. Now you have a 4, okay? What else do? You just drop whatever variable that is there as it is and put it here, okay? So I'm going to drop it as it is and put it somewhere here. All right. Now moving on to the next part. Positive multiply by positive. That will give you a positive. Okay. So this will give me a positive, and therefore you go ahead and say 2 multiplied by 5. That will give you 10. Okay. Now you have completed simplifying the first part. Now you now need to ask yourself, in order to simplify this expression further, do you have like terms? Right? Now we are grouping like terms. The step that I'm going to show you don't have to show it when you do answer this question. So this is just to simplify, but it doesn't do any harm if you show this step. Right? Now, what do? you need to group the like terms. This is how you find the like terms, right? So this term, right, has or contains x squared. Then you need to look around. Do you have any other term that contains x squared? This does not contain x squared. This does not contain x squared. This does contain x squared, right? Meaning this term and that term are like terms. Why? Because they have something in common, which is x squared and x squared. Therefore, when you group them, you just simply put them together. Okay? So this is what I'm going to do. So I'm simply going to say x, 6x squared plus 6x squared, right? So this 6x squared is that one, and this 6x squared is this one here, right? So you can simply do this to show that you have actually eliminated that part. Now this is just to show you that you are done with that part. You have grouped them together. You have grouped them together somewhere here, right? So you are done. Now these are the ones that are remaining that you still need to group so that you can get the answer here. Okay? Now, you have this one. This is the next one. This term contains x, right? Now, you need to look around. Do you have any other term here on this expression that contains x? Then you look around. Yes. This is the term that contains a variable x, right? Therefore, you put them next to each other, right? So this one is minus 6x. I'm going to put it here. And next to it, I'm going to put minus 4x, right? Let's go ahead and do that. So I have minus 6x minus 4x. Okay? So this minus 6x, I put it here. And minus 4x, I put it here, right? The next thing is just to cancel to show that I have completed or I am done with these parts, right? So the only terms that are remaining are positive 3 and positive 10. Are they like terms? Yes. Why? Because they don't have variables in just after the number, right? So this constitutes as like terms. Okay, so I'm going to put positive 3. I'm going to have positive 3 plus positive 10. Okay, now the next step is to simplify, right? So since when these are like terms, right, I just go ahead and write x squared, okay, right, because these two are like terms, right? X squared, and simply add the coefficients 6 plus 6, which gives me 12, right? So I'm going to put 12 here, right? So I'll go ahead and say I have completed that part. All right? So you can do this with a pencil, right? And after you can remove the pencil, right? So this is just to show you that I have completed that part. So this is the answer of that, these two terms. Okay. Now the next one is minus 6x minus 4x. What is the like term? The like term is x. X is common. So I'm going to go ahead and put x here. Okay. Now, the next one will be to add what? The coefficients. Coefficients are numbers in front of the variables. So I have x. So what do I do next? Add the coefficients. Minus 6 minus 4, right? This will give me minus 10. Okay, so this gave me minus 10. Then I can go ahead and say I am done with that and this one. So the last part remaining is 3 plus 10. Okay, so these are like terms. So 3 plus 10 is positive 13, right? I'm going to go ahead and write that positive 13. Okay, now remember the final answer must be written in this form or format, right? In a descending order. You check the highest exponent number and the second highest, and this one doesn't have. Okay, so that means this is now my final answer. All right, so this is my final answer. Okay, all right, this is the last example, right? So you have minus 4x into or multiply by 2x squared minus 3x close bracket minus 3x squared. Remember, we first need to multiply or simplify the part that has brackets first, okay? Which is this part, right? So before we go ahead with our example, I just want to explain the other law of exponents, right? Which is when you have a multiplied by a, right? Let's say a squared. Okay. So you are multiplying the power or powers of the same base. A and A, this is a base. So these are the same base. You are multiplying powers of the same base, right? So what you do is you write that base here and you add the exponents, right? So I'm going to go ahead and write A, right? And what do? I add the exponents. So you have 1 here, so it's going to be 1 plus 2. So that will give you 3, right? So you'll have 3 there, right? So this will be your answer, okay? Yes, so I'm just going to remove that and therefore simplify our question, example number 4, okay? So same thing that we did in the previous example, right? Minus multiplied by positive, okay? Negative multiplied by positive, which would be negative, okay? Now you go to coefficients. 4 multiplied by 2. What do you have? You have 8. Go ahead and put 8 here. I'm going to go ahead and put 8. Okay? Now, the next part is you have a variable here, right? What do? It's this variable multiplied by another variable, which is here, right? So remember, if we didn't have another variable to multiply with, we just put that variable as it is and we put it here. So now we have a variable and another variable, right? So what do? We apply the exponent laws. These bases are the same, so we're going to put one base here, which is x, okay? So which is x, and what else do? Since when the bases are the same, we add exponents. So if there's no number here, that means there's 1. So it's 1 plus that 2 here, which will be 3, all right? So I have 3 there, okay? So I managed to do this first part. Now, the next part will be negative multiply. See here, there's multiply by negative. What do you remember? Negative multiplied by negative is positive. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put positive. Now, multiply that, the coefficient, we multiply 4 and multiply it by coefficient 3. 4 multiplied by 3, that is 12. Okay, that is 12. Now, you go to the next part. X multiplied by x, right? So the bases are the same. I'm going to go ahead and put x because the bases are the same, and therefore add the exponent 1 plus 1. So which will give me, that will give me 2. Okay, so I managed to complete or simplify that part, right? So I'm going to put this as it is, minus 3x squared. All right, now what is expected from here? The question that you need to ask yourself is if there are any like terms. So this is how you find like terms. You start with the first term. This term has exponent 3, right? So it's x cubed. Now, is there any other term that has x cubed here? No. So you go ahead and put it here. So that will be minus 8x cubed, right? Now you go to the second part. You have x squared, right? Is there any other term that has x squared? Yes. So which one is it? Is this one. So what do? You add them together. Remember, so these constitute as like terms, right? So it's x squared, x squared. What do? You put x squared here. And then what do? You add the coefficients, all right? Which is positive 12 minus 3, right? Which is equals to positive 9. Okay. Now, the last thing that you need to ask yourself is if the answer is in descending order, meaning it must start with the highest exponent number and the second highest, just like that. So when you look at this answer, it qualifies as the right format, which is the highest to the smallest. Now that is my answer. Okay, so if you've watched up until this far, I appreciate it. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. When you do like my videos, YouTube algorithm will see that this is the content that you like, and it will promote more of my videos. Thank you. See you on the next one.